All right, it is tag time. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to do this tag today. This is the Star Trek book tag, and I was tagged by Jen over at Remembered Reads. Hi Jen! Thank you so much for tagging me. I never get tagged in anything, so it was quite a treat to see that I was tagged. I was very excited, especially for this tag because I love Star Trek, and I have been wanting to do this one for a while. And this book, this tag was created by JD Archer. Hey JD! I will leave links to both of their channels below and their tag videos below, and you can go check them out. And I think we all have a bit of a Canadian connection going on too, which is really cool, as is Star Trek. Okay, so let's get to the questions. These are all questions where the answer is a book and the question relates to a different series in the Star Trek universe. So we start off question one with Star Trek the original series and a corny yet entertaining read. Now this one was a bit hard because, hey, corny! I love the original series. I really do. I just finished rewatching it. I was watching it while I was doing physiotherapy, so now I'm going to have to pick a different show to watch. But corny was hard because I don't read a lot of books that have a lot of humor in them. But I did come up with something. So my answer for this is Romancing the Duke by Tessa, and this is the first in the Castles Ever After series. And this is a Regency romance, and it is centered on a woman who inherits a castle, Castles Ever After, and she's relieved of this because her father recently passed and left all of his money to a cousin, so she has nothing. But when she comes to take possession of the castle, lo and behold, there is a duke there saying, "No, this is my castle." However, everyone thinks he's dead, so the castle gets passed on to her. However, he is alive. So it's a really, it's kind of a cheesy premise, but it's so much fun, and there's so much witty banter between the two leads. I don't usually look for that. I know that is what a lot of people like with romances, but I haven't really, the ones I read don't really have a lot of that, but these two were just, on fire, and it was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't read, as I said, I don't read a lot of Regency romance, at all, maybe, one other one. So this one was really nice to read one and enjoy it. So, yay! Next up, Star Trek The Next Generation. The sequel is better than the original. Again, I don't know if I'd say Next Generation is better, and I don't know if you could say it isn't corny, at least now watching it 30 years after. Anyway, not gonna argue there, but my answer that I came up with this, which was, again, really hard to come up with. A lot of series I find get better over time, but it's not often the second book that is my favorite. So thank goodness for spreadsheets, because with one I found A Murder of Crows by Anne Bishop, and this is the second in the other series. And this one I actually was a little surprised I continued the series. It's an urban fantasy series, and it features the main character, at least of the first book, is psychic, she can tell the future, but she can only do this if she cuts herself, and then she gets this sort of euphoria from that. However, she's very innocent, and then she sort of comes into the world of shapeshifters. They're shapeshifters type. They're called something else, but they are sort of shapeshifters, and they respond to her blood in a very complicated way. So it's very complicated. I found the first book very problematic. I actually sort of rated it a 1 for all of that stuff that was really, really complicated, and then a 5 for some of the other stuff. I loved the shapeshifters. I loved the community. There were things that I really liked about the storyline. It was pretty harsh. The story of it's pretty harsh because it feels like it's urban fantasy YA, but it's actually not YA, really. I think it's a little too heavy for that, but it feels like it, and it feels romancy, but it's not. So it's in a bit of a weird place. So that's my answer for the sequel, better for the first. Next up, we have Star Trek Deep Space Nine, a Booker series with a great ensemble cast. Again, really hard, really hard, and all the ones I came up with initially didn't work, but I finally went back in time in my memory and came up with the Dragonlance Chronicles by Margaret, Weis, and Tracy Hickman, which, for me, Dragons of the Autumn Twilight, which is the first book, is one of the first fantasy books that I read, and it was one of the first ones where I really sort of got the ensemble casting, and it really helped me understand sort of the dynamics of gaming. Like when you game in a group and you have a tank and you have a mage and you have a cleric, like a healer type, and you have a rogue, and there's usually a party of 5. Who's the other person? I guess I never play that. And I always love tanks. I love tanks or offensively spec healers. But anyway, getting back on track, this one I really enjoyed the cast of characters. It's got that sort of band of misfits kind of feel to it, which I really like in fantasy. So if you have any suggestions for band of misfits fantasy series, I'm actually really looking for that. So Dragonlance Chronicles. And okay, next up we go on to Star Trek Voyager, a Booker series about an epic journey. Again, this one was hard, especially not to go like just go to Lord of the Rings, especially since for me I know the film's way better than the books, so I don't feel that would be an appropriate answer. But I decided to go with The Belgrade by David Eddings. I don't have any of these books. They're all from like a long time ago, or ebooks, so I hope you don't mind the little cards. So The Belgrade, this for me was the first epic fantasy big hero journey story that I read. Really like farm boy to hero story kind of story. And I remember there was a lot of traversing. There was a lot of going far and needing to have lots of bravery, big good and evil kind of thing. And it does have another series. I don't remember actually if the Malorian is like a continuation or if it's separate or if it's in the same world. But for me, really, the heart of it is the Belgrade, and it starts with Pawn of the Prophecy. And it, like Dragonlance Chronicles, are both series that I read so long ago that I don't know if I want to revisit them. Like every once in a while I think about it, but I don't know if they'll live up to my memory of them, especially the Dragonlance books. I don't know if they will. So anyway, maybe it's better to keep them as a memory and go on to new things. But for me, epic journey is definitely the Belgrade. Next up, we have Star Trek Enterprise, a Booker series with a bad ending. Spoilers! Enterprise is the one series, one of the 2 series that I haven't seen. I did start watching it, and it just didn't work for me. And I tried to stick with it for quite a while, but no. I might try, now that it's on Canadian Netflix, I might try and actually do that, but I don't know. I don't know about that. And also, this question is doubly hard for me because I'm anti-spoiler. I felt like any answer I can give would be a spoiler, so that got me in a bit of a twist. So what I figured out to do is I can answer this as a sort of a type of book, and I do have one example, and I think it's a fairly well-known book. And I think what bothered me about it isn't necessarily what other people might take issue with. So hopefully there's a huge bunch of disclaimers there, and now we can get to the answer. But for me, the answer is a question, like a book where you feel tricked by the end, but more specifically, for me, where you feel tricked because it's a morality tale. Like, I think with thrillers, if you feel like you want, and it has a trick ending, like that can be a good thing, that can be a positive. But for me, it's like when you're reading it, it's interesting, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this book is aligning to a particular philosophical, ideal, and is basically telling you this is like the one way of things. Like it's really trying to just hone in and reaffirm a particular philosophical or social or religious message, and that did not feel clear while you were reading the book. So for me, it's that kind of experience and then feeling tricked or betrayed by the book. And for me, very sadly, this happened with the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I was so mad when I finished reading this when I was a kid. I was so mad that I threw the book across the room. I have since read it and feel a little closure and don't feel as mad about it. And I don't know if I had read it as an adult, if I would have picked up on some of the symbolism, because it ain't super, it's not super hidden. But I did feel tricked by the book, and I was really pissed off. Really pissed off. So yeah, for me, it's if you feel tricked by it. So, and not a good reveal, but literally you feel like you're being, told a moral message and being tricked by a wonderful fantasy world, and then all of a sudden it's realism or morality. No, I like fantasy. Next up is Star Trek Discovery, your most anticipated future release. And I don't really have an answer for this. I don't follow new releases that much. I used to do that a lot with film when I was really involved in film, and it's hard. It really weighs on, for me. It really weighs on you. The sort of need to be current. So I've really let go of that with books. There are, of course, certain series that I'm reading that I'm excited for the next like installment. My brother's coming out with a book in August called Hex Rated that I'm really excited for. Nepotism, actually that's probably the one I'm most excited about, but I don't tend to follow new releases, which is actually makes sometimes talking about books on YouTube a little challenging, because I feel like the discussions in the books that I'm talking about are like often very different than the big shiny new. So I sometimes I toy with trying to read some of the newer stuff, but often I haven't enjoyed it, and then it makes it sort of doubly yuck, and so I stop doing that and go back to follow my nose. Next question, and actually there is a next question, kind of. I'm adding a question because there is one more TV series. There's one more TV series, and that's Star Trek the animated series, which is actually now on Canadian Netflix. I haven't seen this one, but I do want to try it out. It's only 2 seasons. But my question, and I'm adding it, if anyone has done this tag already and wants to answer this question, you can leave so in the comments below. I'd love to hear your answers. And my question is, what book did you read simply to be a completist for either a series or an author? So when you went sort of out of bounds and read those like fringes of the, or the fringe of the series, or the last little story, or the whatever it may be, as a part of a series or an author's work, that because your intent was, I am going to read it all. And for me, I am going to answer the question with a bit of an embarrassing one, which is Midnight Sun. Not that embarrassing, I'm going to admit it. Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer, which, if you're unfamiliar, it is a draft of the first several chapters of Twilight from Edward's perspective. And I read it as a part of my podcast that I had with Marina back in the day when we had a Twilight podcast, and it was actually one of our very first episodes. We actually read that and talked about that. I haven't read the gender flip one. I'm not, I don't feel the need to go there, but at the time I was like, anything I could get my hand on, I would. And now I feel that way about the Kate Daniels series by Alona Andrews. I've read all of the supplementary works, all of the additional novels, all of the stories about characters. Every single thing I can get my hands on, I have read. So that's sort of 2 answers there. So there you go. There is the Star Trek book tag. Again, thank you to Jen for tagging me, and of course thank you to JD for creating the tag. I really enjoyed doing this. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, so seeing Star Trek and books collide was so much fun, and if you want to do the tag, feel free to jump aboard. You don't have to be a Star Trek fan. You can definitely answer these questions if you are not familiar with Star Trek, but of course for Star Trek fans, this is so much fun. So much fun! Alright, thank you so much for watching. Bye!